Well, it came about that it was now my turn to dig away into this tunnel. And as I was doing so, I could see about 2 foot in front of me, towards the end of this tunnel, which is about 10 foot long, I could see a round skull lying on top of the boulders there. So I picked it up and turned it around, and I could see then that it appeared to be a human skull. So, as I say, there were bones around there all over the place. So I just picked up an old rib bone and put it in the skull, and we took it to the police then straight away.
It was just a skull. There was no flesh on it, no skin, anything. And, well, my first wife, who was a nursing officer in Morriston at one time, she had a look at it and she said, well, it's female. She could see straight away by the bone structure. The three of us then went down to the cave. One of the young fellows showed us where it was, you see.
Was it difficult to get into the cave?
Well, not the main cave. The main cave was quite large, really, and they had a rope themselves, these lads, and they'd had an iron bar and rammed it into the ground on top, because the cave was right up on the top, you see. It wasn't on the side of the mountain, it was right up on the top. So they had a rope then going down into the main cave, you see. So I went down there then, down into the main cave, and this young fellow pointed, he said, that's where we went in, and there was this, well, it was only just a slit, really. I had to get in on my back and kind of work myself in under this rock until I got into the small cave inside. You know? And of course then I could see then by the light of my torch that all these bones there. And I started getting the bones out now, and I could see. Then I got one arm bone, and I could see a double saw cut on the arm. And so I went back out and I said, I don't know, I said, I think this body's been cut up. And Dr. John Williams and Dr. John Griffiths, rather, not Williams, Dr. John Griffiths, he said, yes, he said, that's someone's been sawing that, he said. There was an old boy living right opposite the police station by the name of Little Willie Jenkins, born down in Putney. So I went across to him, you know, and I said, Bill, tell me, I said, do you remember anybody, I said, well, say, 50, 60 years ago, going missing around here, a woman? He said, wait a minute, there was something, he said. And he thought, you know, he said, she was a showgirl, he said, if I remember. And he said, I think her name was Mamie Stewart, he said. So I got hold of John Christopher, Daily Express reporter who lived in Kittle. I got hold of him and I said, John, I said, oh, I got a date from Little Willie, about 1920, he said, yeah. I said, is it possible for you, I said, to get on to your archives in London, I said, and find out about a missing woman in this area, I said, in about 1920? Leave it to me, he said, as long as I get the exclusive, he said.
So how did she come to Swansea?
George Shotton, he married her, you see, and brought her down here. This was 1918, 1919. He was a marine engineer, and he was working up around South Shields in about 1918, and went to this music hall, and she was in the chorus there, and that's why he took a fancy to her, you know. Although he was older, still he was married then at that time. Well, she was writing to her mother, you know, a letter to say that she was being hit about by this George Shotton, and that you know, at the time of writing she had injuries to her face where he'd been striking her. And she did say in one of her letters that should I go missing, she said, he's done for me. So when they heard no more from her for a while, they reported her missing to the police.
Now, when did you first come into contact with Mamie Stewart and George Shotton?
About July 1919, she came to our notice as a missing person, and we dealt with her as such, with a suspicion of foul play.
How did the case first come to your notice?
Well, we had a communication from the Grosvenor Hotel. This is one. And I visited there and found, after having a conversation with the proprietor, Mr. Owls, I found that there was a case there, a portmanteau, and Mr. Owls told me something, and we opened it, and we found 3 or 4 pairs of ladies' shoes inside, which had been sawn from toe to heel.
Sawn in half?
Sawn in half.
Now, this was Mamie Stewart's portmanteau, was it?
We had every reason to believe that Shotton and Mamie Stewart had stayed there, and they'd left this bag behind. We did a lot of searching in the vicinity of a house where he lived in Caswell Road, Glamorgan, and we did some digging there.
What were you looking for?
For anything, any clue that might lead us to foul play. Well, we found nothing at all, and we ultimately came to the conclusion that she did go abroad with a member of the seafaring life.
Did you know at the time about the existence of this cave on the cliff top where the bones have been found?
We did not.
Do you think you should have known about that?
Perhaps we should have, but we did not. The probably there isn't one man out of 10,000 would know that there was a cave of that description where the remains were found.
They made inquiries down this area, and she just disappeared.
And I'm assuming that Shotton would have been spoken to.
Oh yes, yes. Well, eventually he was arrested for bigamy, and he served 18 months in prison. And he never came back to this area after. They started making inquiries when she went missing, and an old postman by the name of Simons reported to them saying that he had been delivering letters one morning to this Tlonrin, and he walked up the drive and he saw Shotton pulling a heavy sack down some steps, down onto the drive, and his van, a little van he had, was in the drive with the back door open. So it was assumed then that it was quite possible that it was Mamie Stewart's body was in the sacks, because there was sacking, rotted sacking, found down in the cave.
Why do you think he murdered her?
Well, apparently, from what we were told by his legal wife now, that he had a violent temper. And because Mamie apparently was a bit of a flyer, you see. And it would appear that he was jealous of her, Well, there it was. I mean, as far as we were concerned then, this was obviously the body of Mamie Stewart, you see.
And there was a coroner's inquest?
Yes, yes.
And you give evidence there?
Yeah, and of course I found an engagement ring and a wedding ring down in the cave, you see. And these were traced to a jeweller in South Shields. And he was shown a photograph of Mamie Stewart, and he remembered her coming into the shop with this man Shotton and buying these rings. Well, the coroner then, Mr. James, he, after all the evidence was given and everybody finished, he, in his summing up, he was, he said, I have no doubt, he said, that this is the body of Mamie Stewart, and it was all laid out there in the court, you see, and that she was murdered, And he said, murdered by George Shotton. And so he brought in that verdict, you see.
And of course, he was never convicted of that murder.
Well, no, because he died 3 years before
And
the bones were discovered, you see. And, well, him, I mean, he was very fortunate that he got away with it, you see. And there we are. He died, obviously, he probably thought about it practically every day of his life, I expect. From that 1919 to the time he died. Must have, I think. I would say so, anyway.
not knowing whether he'd be caught or not.
This is it. Expecting any time, you know, for someone to put the arm on his shoulder and say, right, you were nicked, as they say these days. The only thing I can come up with now that is a murder that came to a grave conclusion.